do get told by professors and doctors, because I mean I was dragged to professors and doctors my whole childhood. Oh, you would never be able to write properly, or you would never be able to speak properly. She heard me speaking Zulu and she ended up dropping the box and fainting in the store. As the young people of this country, I think if we can keep it in practice, we can go a very, very long way.
In isiZulu there is a saying,
Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, yes. Never be ashamed to share your story with others.
Liam, you speak fluent isiZulu.
Yes.
It catches people off guard at first, but soon they lean in and you engage in full conversation. How many other South African languages do you speak now?
Well, currently I speak 4 South African languages, which is Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, and I also understand Sotho. So yeah, those are the four South African languages so far, but I'm always open to learning new languages. You know, it builds connections with people. The more languages you speak, the more people that you touch, and I think the more hearts that you enter. That's a very big thing for me, is, you know, even touching somebody just a small way, you know, speaking their language. I think it creates that connectivity and allows you to actually form a lasting bond.
Where did that all start from?
Big thing for me was, you know, breaching that gap, because there's always been a bit of a invisible divide between us, and I think language was the biggest thing for me and the biggest factor to breach that divide and to show that we are actually one.
You self-taught yourself to speak all of them.
Actually a very funny story about where that came from. So while I was at school, the ladies that would always clean and everything, I would go and sit with them and I would tell them, listen, teach me your language and your culture. And I was very keen and very open to embracing their cultures and their language as well. And from that, I've started learning other languages and taken it a long way.
I love the way you say that. So it is not just, it's embracing the different cultures, especially in South Africa, that it's so multicultural, but it's also that human connection, the belonging.
Yes.
And something that we're trying to build in South Africa is within that unity.
Once I was able to start understanding other people's culture, I found it very easily to belong amongst large groups of people, because we could find that common ground, you know, and I could understand where they come from, and they could also understand where I come from. I think that's where I found my sense of belonging. Once you understand people's cultures, you can find that sense of belonging.
How many years has it taken for you to get to those 4 languages?
Next year will be 10 years that I've been on this journey, you know, teaching myself these languages, and, you know, not only the languages but the cultures as well, you know. I think if we can understand one another's cultures, then we can actually, you know, forge ahead. But it's been about 10 years now that I've been on this language journey.
Liam, you from a very young age, I think at the age of 10, you already engaged into politics.
Yeah.
That raised many eyebrows. Where did that interest come from?
I come from a very big political family. I mean, I remember, you know, at the age of 10, sitting with my mother and watching parliamentary debates, and I think from that, and also listening to, you know, them discussing politics, I felt like I was groomed into a very big political space, you know, amongst my family members, and I think that's where my interest came in. You know, it sparked that switch in my head to say, listen, I want to know more from a very young age.
I mean, even at the age of 18, you were part of the political party youth group as well.
I think that the more young people get involved in politics and actually come to that realization that through coming together and through showing an interest in politics, we can actually make a difference, and we can form a country that we want to see, and I think will be beneficial to the young people of this country.
At my previous episode with Alina, we spoken about South African youth not going to vote because they seem to have lost hope in the government.
I can understand why the youth have lost hope in the country. For me, for a few years, I was also on that path of, is there actually hope? 90% of your voters roll is below the age of 35. I mean, your youth have the say to make a difference. But I think they've also lost faith in the system due to always being on the bandwagon of the false promises that we've been given. The same promises over and over, every 5 years they come around and they tell you the same things. But if you actually look at on the ground, some of the conditions that some of the young people are stuck in. I mean, you're sitting with a youth unemployment rate of nearly 62% in the country. I mean, it's very easy to lose hope when you're looking at such things. But I think you do find a few inspirational stories, on the ground of people always wanting to go above and beyond and make a difference. I think even if it's in a small way.
We now ventured into politics.
Yes, a subject which is very close to my heart.
And that, like I said earlier, that is going to be probably an hours or days even. Like we started last night at the dinner table. So we need a totally separate episode for that.
Yes, definitely.
As a white young South African, what Ubuntu means for you?
I think the best way to summarize it would be that brotherly love in a way, or good neighborliness, instead of it being politicized or slogans. And if we can actually practice that thing of, let's come together and let's build something bigger and something greater. A lot of people's minds over the last 30 years have changed, and I think it's more especially amongst my generation or the younger generation, where we've been raised in such a way to say, I see you more as my brother or my sister than somebody that I don't know, based on your race or your language. Or as the young people of this country, I think if we can keep it in practice, I think we can go a very, very long way.
And that is that we are who we are because of the others. It's in isiZulu there is a saying,
Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. Yes, that one. Yes, that's the.
Would you please say it again?
Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu.
We all love success stories. And to many, you are the success story. All the success stories, they have that middle, the struggle part. And you have been quite private about your story. And probably even people closest to you
don't know my
your story. Would you be comfortable sharing your stories or snippets of it?
Just to give you a brief summary, I was born premature. I was born on the 6th of July, 2000. I lost my father when I was about 4 years old. And I never really got that fatherly relationship. He died when I was 4 years old. I never really got to know him. I was raised by a single mother who I loved very dearly. And we formed a very close bond. And she for many parts of my life was my inspiration. She was always that one person that I could always say, always encouraged me to go for my goals, no matter my setbacks. When you get told by professors and doctors, because I was dragged to professors and doctors my whole childhood. A lot of them said to me, oh, you would never be able to write properly, or you would never be able to speak properly, or you would never be able to play sports. She would always come out and say, and I think my family as a whole would always come out and say, you know what, you can do it. And that small encouragement always pushed me to try new things. And today I can speak properly, I can read, I can write, I can play sports. Growing up, always having been put in a box, if you want to metaphorically put it that way, kids can also be very harsh. And for many years, mentally, I struggled with that thing, to say that, I'm different to everybody else. But I think the people that I had around me, my family, and more especially my mom, in that sense that, through my struggles, she was always there by my side. And she took me out of that box and she said, no, but you're no different to anybody else. You can do it. And sadly, she passed on last year. And for a long time after she passed, I'd kind of lost that sense of belonging. But I think more recently, I've started to recoup that with the family that I've formed relationships with and I've become a lot closer to. They've given me that sense of belonging. Through, having 7 to 8 years of, school bullying, and I've sort of formed that shell around me to say, oh, but, I'm not going to let you in too much because, you might be quick to judge me and the person that I am. So I think that is a bit of a mechanism that I've formed over the years, and especially as I've grown older, to protect myself. Yes.
It's the acceptance. Maybe that is what we need more, tolerance and acceptance.
I think we're very quick to, like I always say, from my side, I always say, don't judge me unless you've walked a mile in my shoes. In the current world that we live in, people are very quick to judge you and without actually fully understanding you as a person, more especially social media. I mean, social media is very quick to put labels onto people. I mean, are we going to be gullible enough to fall for that?
You've gone through a very tough time within your childhood with many challenges. We talked about school bullying, we talked about belonging, we talked about a feeling outsider and not accepted. You've been there, you've seen that.
Yes.
And it's a lot seems to be that people and the youth stay in the narrative of the victim mindset.
I think it takes a lot of courage to actually say, I'm going to rise above that victim mentality and I'm going to create something, and I'm going to forge something out of the struggles that I went through. For me, it took a lot of mental toughness and a lot of mental strength. Some days you wake up in the morning and you ask yourself, am I really going to get to where I want to be? I was very much set on the path of, I will prove you wrong. Even though I'm not going to let my struggles define who I am, I'm going to now take my struggles, and I'm going to use them as building blocks to build something bigger and brighter. That was a big thing for me growing up. Always have that faith in yourself, and you can achieve anything that you set your mind to and your sights to. I think that would be the one thing that I would tell somebody that was in my position or similar to my position, is always have that faith and belief in yourself.
If tomorrow would be a new chapter in your life, what would that be? What you would envision?
Being there to offer a hand and to say that you're not alone in the struggles that you've faced and the things that you've experienced. That there are people out there that have actually been through the same thing that you've been through and have come out stronger and more resilient. And I think my next chapter of my life would be about going on telling my story to people and helping to lift them out of that hindrance of that victim mentality to say, oh, but I'm the only one that's been through this. And I think that to me would be the next story of my chapter that I would look to write.
You are a success story against all the odds, and you are indeed an inspiration to many. And like you said so well, that just sometimes all what we need to feel is not alone in our struggle. And through sharing stories like yours, those are life wisdoms that we can't Google. For somebody, what would you like to say within your different languages?
Mina into engizoyikusho nje ukuthi kumele uhlezi ukhumbule ukuthi awukho wedwa la emhlabeni, kanti futhi kukhona isandla ezokuphakamisa ihambe nawe kuzo zonke inkinga obhekene nazo ukuthi uzokhona ukwakha ikusasa elihle. I think that would be my message, basically always remember that you're never alone in your struggles, and there'll always be a hand from somebody that you might not know to help you and push you through your struggles. That would be my message to people.
I love that, Anne. I wish I could speak like that. Lovely. It sounded like a music.
I'll sit down and teach you.
Going back to the languages, I would like to add from my side a memorable event when we went to the local store with you, Liam, and you passed the comment to the cashier speaking isiZulu. And the next moment, all the cashiers, they left the stations and they stormed to meet you. and you carried on talking and chatting, and this caused a chaos in a store.
It's always been that way, where I go into public spaces and I start speaking to people and I've automatically drawn crowds. I mean, like the story at Spa, where I spoke to the cashier a few words and everybody came running and swarmed us, and I've managed to actually shock people in a way with the way I speak and the way I articulate their culture and their language, sometimes better than they do, as a lot of them have always told me.
For you, like you said, speaking someone else's language, it is not just a language of the word, it is touching hearts, saying, I see you, I respect you, and I understand you.
The more you learn somebody's language, the more you're actually able to create that relationship and go into their hearts and actually say, this person sees me. Even though we have different cultures, we are still able to be one, and we can find that understanding where, there's certain things in maybe my culture that you don't understand that I can teach somebody, and there's certain things in their culture that I might not understand. So we can always learn from one another.
Can you tap into the memory of some story to share?
I remember I went into a shop the one day and I was buying groceries, and I was going with one of my friends, and we were speaking Zulu, and the lady that was packing the shelves, she was carrying a box, and she heard me speaking Zulu, and she ended up dropping the box and fainting in the store. And when she came to, I asked her, why did you faint? She said, your tone and the way you speak Zulu is better than mine. It's better than my own Zulu, and I take Zulu as a home language. It's my home language, and you speak it better than me. And I think that was, to me, I think that's one of the memories that will always stick with me.
Liam, if your life were a novel, what is the title of the chapter you would like to rewrite, and what would you change?
With my mother's passing last year, I think that to me was a very, very traumatic time, and I think it was one of my most difficult times in my life. I think it would be a tragic story that I would change and I would look to rewrite. And if I was to give that part of my life a name, I would say the incomplete book, the incomplete, because to me it was very much a book that was, there were still stories to write and memories to make. So if my life was a novel, and I would definitely go back and change that and rewrite it.
In our life. My motto is invent yourself and reinvent yourself.
Well, I think mine, very cliche to my story, I think is as my shirt says here, keep moving forward. No matter the challenges that you face, and no matter the obstacles that may come in your way, and no matter how many times you fall, always pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. I think that's a very good motto to live by, and I think it's a very strong one as well.
Now, I never noticed that t-shirt before what you had. Can I just have a look at further? There we go. Keep on moving forward. I don't think it's a cliche. I think this is just so perfect. And this is so you, and that is your motto indeed in life. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Never forget that you're never alone, and no matter the challenges or the struggles you may face, never be ashamed to share your story with others, because your story is your story defines you and defines the life that you've built. Your achievements should be celebrated by many. Maybe I can help somebody else through a similar situation to mine, or could be the same situation that I had found myself in, through the things that I've seen in my life and the wisdoms that I've acquired. I hope from my side that I'm able to make a difference in somebody's life, even if it's in a small way, just to bring that inspiration and that hope. to somebody else to say that I know what you've been through and I know what you've experienced. Even though you have these struggles, there is always a way out.